You got kids that are overfed and malnourished and improperly hydrated. They're not going outside and playing for 4 to 6 hours outside freely in an unorganized manner anymore. Instead, they're sitting behind screens for a majority of their day. This not only leaves them inactive with poor posture, but they're overstimulated and less aware, and they're disconnected from vital physiological and neurological processes that promote healing and boost performance. So you have this group of youth that are devolved in this state because of how we're raising them from womb to 13.
Welcome to the Wise Traditions Podcast, sponsored by the Weston A. Price Foundation for wise traditions in food, farming, and the healing arts. We're your source for scientific knowledge and traditional wisdom to help you achieve optimal health.
Hey everybody, I'm Hilda Labrada-Gore, and this is episode 182. Our guest today is Dr. Tommy John. Tommy owns and runs the Dr. Tommy John Performance and Healing Center in San Diego, and he is the author of Minimize Injury, Maximize Performance, a sports parent survival guide. Does his name ring a bell? I wouldn't be surprised if it did. Tommy is the son of baseball legend Tommy John, who had the first Tommy John surgery. On today's episode, Tommy tells us some of his father's story, and then he dives into his own. He talks to us frankly about the youth sports injury epidemic. Did you know that up to 40% of emergency room visits for children between the ages of 5 and 14 are for sports-related injuries? He helps us discover what's behind this trend and what is driving the sports machine in our country. He covers topics such as how to address our kids' cravings, how to handle fueling their bodies on the go, and overall, he gives us practical guidelines to help our kids, and all of us actually, reach our full potential. Before we get started, a free gift for you. The Weston A. Price Foundation has a free info pack available on the website that includes a brochure about the amazing principles of traditional healthy diets. In it, you'll read about Dr. Price, you'll see pictures he took, and learn about how our modern diet stacks up against those of people groups around the world. Just go to the homepage of our website, westonaprice.org, and click on the green button that says Request Free Info Pack. It's that easy. And a big thank you to our sponsor, Ancestral Supplements. They are the makers of gallbladder with ox bile. Based on the ancient wisdom of like supports like, they put New Zealand-sourced nose-to-tail organ meats and bone marrow in convenient gelatin capsules. Order yours today at ancestralsupplements.com. Ancestral Supplements, putting back in what the modern world has left out. This is Holistic Hilda, and you're listening to Wise Traditions. Welcome to Wise Traditions, Tommy.
Thank you very much for having me. It's my pleasure.
I had to have you on the minute I heard that your father was the pro baseball legend, Tommy John.
I love that you just called him a legend because I think he's a legend as well, and people are forgetting that. So thank you. Yes.
Right? Like they focus on the surgery thing, but that's a piece of the story too. Can you tell us more, especially for those of our listeners who are not sports fans? Tell us a little bit about who he was and this whole surgery that was named after him.
Sure. So my dad is Tommy John. He played in the big leagues of baseball, so Major League Baseball, for 26 seasons. In 1974, 11 years into his career, he tore a ligament in his throwing elbow, and at the time, it was career-ending. A doctor named Dr. Frank Jobe of the Los Angeles Dodgers decided to take a chance and do something that he had only done on polio patients' ankles at the time, which was transplant a tendon and replace it where the ligament would be. He had never done it in a thrower. He had never been done outside the ankles of polio patients. And he gave my dad a 1 in 100 chance that he would ever come back. And my dad, being the type of person that he is, just needed that little sliver of a chance. And he took it, and the words he actually said were, "Let's do it." And they did it, and he pitched another 14, 15 seasons after that and never missed a start because of his elbow. And because he did so well coming after that, it was easier to call the surgery Tommy John surgery. And now, for all of those listening, if you turn it on any sports program of any kind, you're probably going to hear the words Tommy John surgery used because it's a common injury used nowadays.
And it's not only common in people that play sports, right?
Absolutely. It's common in everyone. It's even been in I've had some clients come in who tore their ligament digging in their garden. They tore an elbow ligament in their garden and they had Tommy John surgery and they're coming to rehab with Tommy John.
So is it our imagination, or are there more and more injuries happening to our children?
So here's a scary number. You're absolutely right. It's not your imagination. It's a dead fact and truth. In 2011, the latest study to take in the numbers of just Tommy John surgery alone, just below 60% of them, of all the Tommy John surgeries, were happening in between 15 and 19-year-olds. That was 2011. Now here we are, fast forward to where we have, and I've seen this having been in the business for 18 years, I've seen this wave change. And it was this trend kind of switch over where we had the people I was treating in 40, 50s, and 60-year-olds, the things they had in 40 and 50 and 60-year-olds were showing up in my practice at 10, 11, 12. Pediatric ACL surgeries. Hilda, 9 years old, already having ACL surgeries, tearing their ACL ligaments. We got stress fractures in their spines. Concussions are up hundreds of %. And the scariest part, I wish it was just knees and elbows, but I got kids coming in, and when I confer with colleagues around the nation who are participating in these sports, they're being medicated for anxiety and depression due to the pressures that they're experiencing in their youth sports process.
Oh, that's so disheartening.
Yeah, it breaks my heart. Our family had to deal. My brother went through a lot with mental health situation, and we were neck deep in some of the horrible nightmare stories that would come along with that. And that's why it breaks my heart to hear or see a 9, 10, 11, and 12-year-old already having to deal with these psychiatric conditions that are highly preventable.
So is it that we're just having more kids participate in sports? That's what some would say.
Yeah, so that's a great question, because everyone's trying to find, and this is the way I phrase it, we're trying to find the single finger to put in the dam, but the dam's overflowing. And so what I've come up with are 3 causes that compound that I'm coming from with over 18 years of this, from what I've seen. The first, it's the biggest and most profound. It's the American de-evolution lifestyle. You got kids that are overfed and malnourished and improperly hydrated. They're not going outside and playing for 4 to 6 hours outside freely in an unorganized manner anymore. Instead, they're sitting behind screens for a majority of their day. This not only leaves them inactive with poor posture, but they're overstimulated and less aware, and they're disconnected from vital physiological and neurological processes that promote healing and boost performance. So you have this group of youth that are devolved in this state because of how we're raising them from womb to 13. Now you have another elephant in the room. It's the youth sports industry is a $17 billion a year industry. That's more than the NFL.
What?
So we have unnecessary camps, clinics, showcases. We have private lessons. Now, Hilda, I used to do, my business was private baseball lessons. I did over 11,000 baseball lessons, realized I was a part of this problem, shut down my school overnight. That's when I went back to chiropractic school, because I realized I was a part of something that was not positive and developmental and definitely not necessary. But you have this youth sports mecca attacking and focused on these kids, and they're selling them a lie, basically, which is that if you specialize early, if we evaluate talent early, if you get in early and you do more, that you're going to be good, 1, 2, possibly have a scholarship, or 3, that you're professional caliber. And sadly, the third component to these causes, the kids aren't driving themselves to the practices. The youth sports industry is preying on parents, and their only fault is that they love their kids so much they're willing to do whatever it takes. Unfortunately, the decisions we're making, the kids' bodies and minds can't keep up.
Wow. Well, I'm still thinking about point number 1 that you mentioned, Tommy, this kind of devolved situation. And I think that's going to really resonate with our listeners, because we're always thinking about how in these Weston Price circles, we're looking to the traditions of the past to rediscover them, because we've lost touch with who we are and who we're supposed to be physically.
Mm-hmm. And that's one thing I tried to instill in the principles that I offer in my practice, and the principles that have been exposed to me, and the stuff that just makes sense, whether it's nutrition or movement or emotional or in meditations or whatever you're looking to. The things I'm providing, or the things I'm quote unquote selling in my office, which are just ideas. It's just principles. Mm-hmm. I'm not, and I say this all the time, I'm not rewriting the book on anything. I'm just bringing back the chapters that everybody skipped. And that's why I say, like, there's so many clues as to what worked by generations past, that if we just tried to hold on to some of those truths, those principles. And that's why I say there's principles. There is a way to carry over those principles to today and take advantage of some of the technology that we have at our feet, which is amazing. But when we have science and technology in one hand and the other hand, we're losing that thing, that glue that held us all together. And there are principles that cannot be broken. There's principles in training, there's principles in rehab, there's principles in nourishment, there's principles in healthy relationships. There's things, there's rules, there's laws that you can't break. And sadly, I think we're breaking a lot of these rules, and we're wondering why we're being punished, so to speak.
Yeah. Tell us a couple of these rules or this glue that can help hold us together that we've kind of lost sight of.
So I always try to say, before adding anything, because everyone's like, what am I missing? They always want to know what they're missing or what they can add to their health arsenal or their performance arsenal. And I'm like, well, let's look at what are the essentials. Like, truly, what do we need to thrive and survive? Because it's not going to be a lot, but let's just look at it. One, we need to move our bodies for a majority of the day. So just movement. We need to move our bodies. Okay. Two, we need to get in the sunshine. Not many plants are going to do well with love and water and food in a closet. So we need sunshine. Three, we need to breathe. So I call it meditation, or even just whatever anybody wants to call it, but we have to get back to just learning how to breathe. Four, sleep, quality sleep, and naps, regular naps, 7 to 19 minutes long. These really short little power naps, so to speak. And then finally, nourish ourselves with real food and getting some good, clean water. And within that, if on top of that, we had a belief in something bigger than ourselves, and then outside that, a community, a small, tight-knit community that you can count on and you could share this whole journey with, somewhere within all of that is a solution. And that's when we really start to taper through and we go through, okay, let's do an inventory. How do all those things stack up in your life? Let's look at it. Most of the time, the changes are going to lie somewhere in there. So it's not something we're adding, where I think those are 5 essentials with the 2 fingers off to the side, that if you think of it as a hand, mm-hmm. and we have those essentials and they're expounded out and we're addressing each one, it's like a wide open palm. And then you have things coming in that are extra therapy or extra supplements or just the extras that we have today. You can fit those in between the fingers. Those fit in because they're a supplement too. They're not a replacement for. And that's what we look to. It's like, what can you do to replace my accountability for feeding myself good foods? What can you do to replace my accountability to having to get good sleep? I want to burn hard. I want to work hard. I want to burn it on the weekends. I got to have some way of making this happen. And nature's always going to win. And we keep losing that battle. But again, I've said, once you address those 7 and look somewhere within those 7, I joke because people are like, you still working on those things you've been doing, those principles you've been doing? I'm like, yeah, I haven't quite mastered. Still hard for me to choose the right food. Still hard to get some good sleep. That lunge still gets me. Yeah, breathing's still a beast, And I joke because I'm like, it's tough for me too. I'm right here with you. I'm not ahead of you. I'm not above you. I'm right next to you. Just because my doctor title, that doesn't do anything. I'm right here with you. And then I say, if somewhere in there we haven't found a solution where we aggressively and diligently go in and consistently work on those things on a daily basis and give ourselves enough time, because that's the only variable that we can't control is the body's on its own time frame, then it could be something genetic. But now what they're finding with epigenetics, right? It's like 2 to 4% of our health expression is genetics truly. Well, dang, that we got 96 to 98% of our health is in our hands. What a great, empowering statement. I love that. Like, I get goosebumps when I say that, but it scares a lot of other people because then comes that responsibility.
Yeah, I was thinking it'd be easier to just blame it on genetics and then you're kind of shrug your shoulders and it's not my fault. And
right.
Actually, Tommy, I love that illustration of the 5 fingers kind of widely stretched. It made me think of a catcher's mitt, and I don't even play baseball, but I'm like, yeah, how strong and stable you can get your hand around that ball when you've got all those fingers in the right position and the extra webbing between the fingers,
Exactly.
So that's kind of what we're shooting for. But I can't help but think of, parents who are like, okay, I hear what you're saying, but my kid loves soccer. He's definitely going to keep playing soccer. So how can we, just to go with the nutrition thing, because we are all about that here.
Of course.
What would be some energy bar alternatives? We might just try to grab an energy bar when we're on the way to practice or on the way home thinking, oh, well, that's the best we can do. What are some alternatives or some ways which we can fuel our kids with some stuff that's going to really build them up?
So again, the instant fuel kind of idea, it's not a bad idea. We just have to plan ahead of time. And so one of those things, if we don't have a plan, then we fall victim to everything that's sitting there because we're an instantaneous society, right? And it's all just sitting in our hands. For the first time ever, we have food available to us at all times. Nobody knows when they're hungry, when we should eat. We just know when we think we should eat because everyone's telling us you're hungry. Or check this food out. Here, look at on every street lamp. I mean, everywhere you go, it's food, 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 food. How do we possibly know when we're hungry, when we're not? How do we connect with ourselves? So I think you guys got to plan ahead of time. And then bringing in back, we have 3 things that we have to get in varying amounts, and everybody's different. We need good quality proteins, hopefully from a good, clean animal source, grass-fed, organic, or pastured. Mm-hmm. We need carbohydrates coming from mainly vegetables and good fruits. That's not going to change. And then good fats coming from really good saturated sources like ghee, tallow, coconut oil, lard, and grass-fed and organic butters. So if we stay within those, all right, what if we think ahead of time? Could we make some, you could hard boil good farm eggs ahead of time? You can do, honestly, I order bacon from Wallace Farms and their bacon is hands down one of the best. When it's cold and redone, kids love it. I'll have it in my office and these kids will come in and they're just jonesing for bacon. I'm like, go have at it. And now what they have is a hard-boiled egg, a bacon, a piece of bacon, a strip or 2 of bacon, and apple slices, maybe drizzled in homemade caramel that you made from butter and honey, raw honey. Like, what a great, I don't know a kid that's going to turn that down, And then what you have is this energy-sustaining level steady. It's just that torch is not going to go out. And now when they get home, maybe they're hungry, maybe they're not, maybe it's time to eat again, but again, when we provide the right foods, the body kind of gets on its own ideal craving system and you start craving what's optimal.
Coming up, Tommy has practical suggestions for how all of us can deal with our cravings. And he discusses the power of believing in the protocol that you are going to follow for healing.
You're listening to the Wise Traditions Podcast, sponsored by the Weston A. Price Foundation. We pause now to recognize our sponsors.
Mike, the Heal Your Gut guy. Are you dealing with digestive issues? Do you react to delicious sourdough bread and other starches? Do you pay dearly when you eat cheat foods? Mike, the Heal Your Gut guy, also suffered from these issues even when following a Wise Traditions diet. Mike will show you the extra steps he took to heal himself and how he has helped many others take care of gut issues like Crohn's, colitis, IBS, SIBO, and Candida. Mike will show you how to heal your gut 100% naturally without drugs. The Heal Your Gut Guy YouTube channel has the videos you need to heal your gut. You don't have to walk a dietary tightrope. Just search for the Heal Your Gut Guy on YouTube. You'll find tons of free information rooted in the laws of Mother Nature and ancestral wisdom. And Gallbladder with Ox Bile by Ancestral Supplements. Ancestral Supplements offer New Zealand-sourced nose-to-tail organ meats, bone marrow, and gallbladder with ox bile in simple, convenient gelatin capsules. Our early Native American ancestors would commonly take a buffalo, cut it open on the spot, and eat the warm liver seasoned with gallbladder and bile. The bile was sprinkled on various organs and glands as a condiment, the way we might use mustard today. Word has it that gallbladder and bile did a whole lot more than just improve the taste. Gallbladder, ox bile, and liver provided concentrated amounts of gallbladder-specific building blocks, bile and liver that support our biliary tract, gallbladder, liver, and bile ducts, and are now absent from the modern diet. So visit Ancestral Supplements today to see what they can do for you. Ancestral Supplements, putting back in what the modern world has left out. This is Holistic Hilda, and you're listening to Wise Traditions.
And I tell people all that all the time. They'll come in my office and, as we get the nervous system primed and cleared and we start moving our bodies and we start breathing right, we start clearing away some of the fog. They might have some cravings that aren't. And I always listen to when people are connected. Mm-hmm. Is it normal to crave food late at night? Sure. How do I know? You know what I mean? I don't know. Like something's telling me, what are you craving? Sweets, like chocolate cake of some kind. Okay, great. Before we just say, no, that's wrong, because who are we to say that?
Mm-hmm.
What if we gave you a 5-ingredient cake? You know, that we had a flour, we had a baking soda, a good clean, you know, a good flour, you know, we had good eggs and we had butter and we had cacao and honey and maybe avocado as part of the icing or whatever we had. Now, all of a sudden, instead of eating half the cake, you had a little slice because your body was like, okay, I know those 5 ingredients. Now you didn't psychologically bottom out because you're denying yourself something that you found pleasure in for whatever reason. And now over the course of time, kids are the same way. If we kind of feed into those cravings from natural, real, raw, real food sources, maybe those cravings are ideal. And then over the course of time, things start to fluctuate again because a year later it could totally change. And kids are growing like weeds, their nervous systems especially, their brains, brain stems, the spinal cord, just the fatty tissue that's growing and innervating everything in their system is just thirsty for nutrients. It's just wanting it. It's just a little sponge. And if we give it, all of a sudden we liked that food. Now we want this food. Go with it. Like I'm all about cravings and I indulge, but I tell people from homemade, try to make everything from source where you know every ingredient, what everything is going into, and the bodies will respond positively more or less, with the very rare pizza party where you don't even think about it. You go to the pizza party, you don't even think about it because it's not about being perfect. There's no way anybody has to be perfect. And I always say it's our mindset behind our food, not the ingredient itself in per se. And so I always say that it's possible for a happy donut to be healthier than a sad salad. and people are like, wait, that's such crap. There's no way. And I'm like, well, hold on. Because I've seen people measure out and be really strict and it be quote unquote healthy ingredients, and they're not really healthy and it's not sustainable. And then there's, and then there's something, but your emotional connection to the food itself is a lot of times more potent than the actual ingredient.
Wow, that is just so powerful. Yeah, I've had conversations with friends and people on this podcast like Steph Gaudreau who were talking about just what you're saying. Like there's no need to deprive ourselves. As a matter of fact, we should listen to our bodies and probably more to our guts than we do right now. And that's part of this system. When you're talking about building kids up, you're trying to get them in tune with their bodies again, aren't you?
Absolutely. It's trying to connect them because, again, we don't give kids enough credit. They are little geniuses. There's so much we could learn from them because they're so pure. They're so connected to their innate intelligence. There is so much we can learn from what they're going through. And if you start them early and you start to connect how the meals they ate affected their performance. Hey, remember when you kicked 2 goals the other day? Well, remember when we had that big romaine salad or the cabbage salad? Or do you know that, remember how your muscles were responding to that? You put that idea in a kid's mind, they will be asking for more. It's not them being like picky eaters. Just connect them to that. And us as adults could learn a lesson to that as well. You know, I always say, like, your body won't be able to sustain the level that you're burning at because you're not giving it the proper fuels. So I always say, like, when you get in a clear nervous system, you start moving well, your body will start to demand what it needs, knowing what it's about to go into. Kids are no different.
Yeah. I was thinking about some friends of mine who said, if you put kids in front of a large buffet of real whole nutrient dense foods, and maybe there would be some junk food there too, they would actually on their own over time, I guess, choose the better food because that's exactly what their bodies are craving and that's exactly what their body needs. So intuitively, they would make the right choices.
I think so. I think our biggest handicap is our education. It's all that we know. You know what I mean? That's the hard part. Is I have it all the time. Some of the most powerful experiences in a healing world are in animals or in children. Why? Because it's not, oh, I heard that you were supposed to do this, or I read that. They don't have that yet. And so there's a way to harmoniously blend it, but I think it's massively difficult for an adult because we have access to so much information and we try to gather so much information that it just becomes, at what point do you listen to yourself and then empower it with the information you have versus take all the information you got. I checked all the boxes that this person said didn't work. What's wrong with me? Not necessarily anything at all. You know what I mean? Just what are the principles that everyone's saying? What makes sense to you? And that's what I try to tell people all the time. Bottom line, the best approach to anything is the one you believe in. And I tell them that every time they walk through my door. What's the best way we can go about healing from this or killing this disease or fixing this or balancing out? The one you believe in. If you don't believe in me and this office and what I'm doing, do not continue with me. If you believe in something else, then absolutely. But the most powerful approach to anything we could do from a health and performance or healing and performance is the approach that we believe in most.
That is such a good word. Yes, I've heard of medical clinics that will say, don't come here if you don't believe that we're going to help you, because some people go under duress or because the family's pressuring them and they can't work with a patient who doesn't believe it's going to be efficacious.
Exactly. And that's what I need everybody on board, because if there's a shred of doubt in the household of what we're trying to do, whether it's prevent injuries or help just people adapt and thrive to the greatest level, which is immeasurable. Like our levels of potential it's immeasurable. It will never be measured, but everybody's got to be on board. It can't be mom, daughter, son, and dad's antagonizing. It can't be dad. And, everybody's got to do it all together. So that's why on day one, I kind of need everybody coming in, because it's a whole family effort. Hilda, I'll even say, if somebody's not a part of my tribe, like if somebody's not either challenging me to be better or supporting me, I can't have you in my reality. Like you're antagonizing my growth and it's not helping me out. You're gone. You're not helping the equation. And I try to cut out all those outliers that would be antagonistic to something that we're trying to move forward to. The health and performance of any athlete or anything that we're going. That's why it totally transcends sports. But I need everybody on board.
Hold on. I want to understand this. Are you saying that the people who are like so-called energy vampires in your life or toxic people in your life, you're giving them the boot, or are you talking about in terms of your practice?
So no. So in my life, I give them the boot. Now in my practice, I want to help everybody. Everybody has a chance. They could come in with the most dogmatic, locked in, they're not changing their way. And that's one of the biggest, greatest challenges that I take on. But in that, if I've got, 100 people that I take on, guess what I'm doing Saturday and Sunday? I have to sort of detox from everything I took on, because I have these like intimate conversations with everybody, whether I think so or not, or whether I believe so. It's 100% exchanging with me. As soon as I place my hands on that person, I'm accepting them, they're accepting me. Our subconscious is on it. So come Saturday and Sunday, I need to do so much detoxification, so to speak, and get back to source so that I can be fresh Monday, because I don't know how long that'll last. And if I burn it hard, there's so many times we see these healers that just at the expense of their health, they can't keep up. And a lot of them see so much volume and care so much and take in so much that they got to kind of empty their own cup and take care of themselves. It's not selfish. No. It's just ideal, but in my life as well, I've gotten to the point to where I've alienated. I said this, I'm like, the challenge of believing in something so hard or having a philosophy of some kind is you tend to alienate yourself. Do you know what I mean? And you get real specific about who's a part of it and who's not. And I've gotten to the point where there's like an elite group that are, a part of this, and it's great. And now I'm so sensitive that if somebody isn't, you could feel them. And I know you know what I'm talking about. Like when you're in their presence, it's like, ooh, you just sense it. You don't have to say anything, you don't have to do anything, but it's just one of those things that you become a barometer kind of goes off,
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about when you're talking about that kind of energy exchange that happens. I have a friend who's a hairdresser. When she starts to cut their hair, no kidding, their energy will seep onto her. And sometimes she's like, oh my gosh, I have to do like a cleanse after my clients because, they bring a certain energy. And so if you're dealing with people of all sorts all day long, you do need a safe place. So I actually look to you in admiration that you are making that space for yourself and in a healthy way. It just makes a lot of sense. You're just the most intuitive sounding doctor I've ever talked to.
You just gave me the greatest compliment ever. I want to make a t-shirt of that and I want to wear it proudly. You're the most intuitive doctor ever. Done. That's it. That's my bumper sticker. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Sounds good. So Well, I have to segue now because our time is almost elapsed completely, unfortunately, Tommy. If the listener could do one thing to help their child prevent injury, what would you recommend that they do?
I always say, and this can be either in health or in performance or in sport, it's all going to come down to the same thing. Everything they're going to need is in their hands. We always look to the specialist, the doctor, the therapist, the coach, the guru, the facility, the wearable technology, all these things to save us, heal us, make us rich, make us happy, make us thin, all these things. And there is no outside force that heals you. Not one. All they do is help affect the environment inside you to then create an adaptation. That's it. And our body's only job is to adapt and survive what life provides. So again, if we own the fact and we totally take in the fact that everything we've got to prevent our child from becoming an epidemic or a part of a statistic, it's in our homes. It's from womb to 13, to be very specific. It's from as soon as they're starting to develop inside you, everything you're doing is part of this process. When they're born, everything you're doing is part of this process. And as you get into organized sports, or as you start to get into, they're going to start to like and dislike certain things. It's all within your hands, but you have to look to all of it. There's not going to be a single element that we can trump that's going to trump the other. With that responsibility comes great power. So whether it's with youth and performing in sports, or whether it's you're 50 or 60 and you're dealing with some sort of condition that has you imbalanced in some way, every answer you've ever needed to solve this problem or this situation is lying inside you. And if we go in there, the answer is plentiful.
So we've got that power. So now we've got to act on it. And I hope our listeners do. You guys, if you've enjoyed what he's had to say, I'm going to put a link to where you can find Tommy and the resources he's mentioned. And I thank you so much for your time today. This has been a great conversation.
This was an honor because I've been following in the work of Weston A. Price for about 17, 18 years now. So it's kind of trippy that it's come full circle. And now I'm on the podcast, 18 years later, of something that I followed principally for quite a while. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. Let's stay connected, Tommy.
Definitely.
Our guest today was Dr. Tommy John. Check out his website, minimizeinjurymaximizeperformance.com. And I'm Holistic Hilda. Follow me on Instagram at Holistic Hilda. And for the complete show notes for this and all podcast episodes, just go to our website, westonaprice.org. And that's it. Let's keep in touch, everybody, and see you next time.
Thanks for listening today. We have all kinds of resources to support you on your health journey. On the Weston A. Price Foundation website, you'll find podcasts, blogs, articles, and brochures related to just about any health topic you can imagine. You can also find a local chapter to help you discover sources of real, organic food in your area. And you can become a member to support the Foundation's mission of education, research, and activism. Visit westonaprice.org for all this and more. And remember that the Wise Traditions podcast is available on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. Wise Traditions is a project of the Weston A. Price Foundation for wise traditions in food, farming, and the healing arts. The content on this podcast is provided for informational purposes only and is not intended to substitute for the advice provided by your doctor or healthcare professional. It is not intended to be, nor does it constitute healthcare or medical advice.